SaferWatch and law enforcement. SaferWatch is a powerful tool that enhances public safety by improving communication between law enforcement and the community it serves. Through the SaferWatch platform, agencies can send real-time emergency and non-emergency alerts, keeping residents and visitors informed about critical incidents, safety advisories, and community updates. Additionally, SaferWatch allows the public to report crime tips, suspicious activities, and threats, providing law enforcement with valuable intelligence. SaferWatch tips have led to the prevention of school shootings, stopped sexual predators, caught wanted fugitives and burglary suspects, and has even prevented suicides. This easy-to-use two-way communication tool ensures faster response times and helps protect the community proactively. By empowering both citizens and law enforcement, SaferWatch fosters a safer, more connected community. For more information, visit SaferWatchApp.com or download the free SaferWatch app on iOS or Android. Welcome to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. I'm John Creamer, Deputy Executive Director of FDSA. Each episode, I sit down with law enforcement thought leaders to tackle critical issues shaping the future of public safety. Together, we'll explore key topics that empower law enforcement professionals to navigate challenges, lead with confidence, and advance their careers. Take a pause, gain valuable insights, and lead your career with purpose. Thanks for listening. This is John Creamer, and today joining me is Shelley Stevens. Shelley Stevens is one of the best people on the planet. I'm so glad that you could take the time to join us today. You personally are a candle in the window for me. So I'd like to share with our listeners who you are and what you do, and then let's get into it. So I met Shelley through a friend of a friend, a guy named Doug Mundo with Survive First, introduced me to Shelley, and she does a lot for first responders in all genres. And then specifically, I met Shelley through a program called After Action, which is out in California. So Shelley is, in all fairness and disclosure, is my life coach and has helped me really work through my own personal PTSD and some childhood trauma. So I thought she would be the perfect guest for our listeners who are also struggling with these things and still hiding behind the stigma and who have not reached out to get help yet. So, Shelley, if you would tell us and the listeners a little bit about you and how you wound up dealing with cops and first responders.
I appreciate being here, man. It's thanks for having me. I'll say that in full disclosure, and I tell the guys I work with that I'm not a first responder. I don't have first responders or even military in my family. I've been working in mental health for 21 years. I started out as a drug counselor, working in rehabs and inpatient, outpatient detox for addictions of all kinds. And of course, that all, as we know now, comes from traumas of all kinds. So, but working with you guys, this population, this community for the last year has really opened my eyes. I was very naive to what a desert it is for you guys out here. Even with all the robust peer support, the languaging, the tides are turning, but I don't think fast enough. I guess to back up, I worked in Hollywood for like 25 years. I was a stage manager, worked in show business. I have my own, lived experience of traumas, infancy to 18. After 18, everything was okay, except my self-soothing was causing consequences because I became an alcoholic. So I got sober 27 years ago. And then about 5 years into that, working still in show business, I thought, gosh, I want to change careers. Went to UCLA, got my credential as a drug counselor, and then changed everything completely. So I've been doing this for 21 years, like I say. And I think that this population is woefully underserved. And I think that we don't give you guys enough front end understanding of what you're about to encounter. And I wanted to talk to you today, John, a little bit about, at some point, about just kind of the landscape of therapy out there for you guys. Because what I end up getting back from the guys sitting in front of me, a lot of these guys, their first experience of therapy, which I have to explain. I'm not a conventional therapist. And we can get into that. I'm not a conventional therapist. So, but moreover, they come in with an experience of someone who was, kind of doing that thing where they got a pin on a pad and they're quiet and they're looking and they're waiting, and they're not really offering anything. And there's nothing, they don't have a generosity to them. And that's pisses me off.
Well, you're spot on. And let's get into it. So from my perspective, same years and years of counseling. working high-risk jobs that we all gravitate towards because we're adrenaline junkies and we're trying to bury our own pain. So you gravitate towards SWAT or motors or homicide or some, vice and narcotics. So you find yourself becoming an adrenaline junkie to numb the pain and get over it. And then at some point in the middle of the night, you wake up and you're like, oh my God, there's a crack. And then either, like for me personally, at the time I went to counseling at church. And I'm not knocking that at all. It would probably help a lot of people. But for me personally, when I went there, the pastor that I spoke with, his only life experience was in the church. And we both know I'm quite the sinner, and it was really hard for him to relate to what it was like to be at a gruesome homicide scene or a child drowning, or then perhaps some of the risky behavior that might be engaged in to make that go away. So I really did not click with that person because they just didn't have the scars, and I could not relate to them. And then my next round was with EAP, with the government agency that I worked for at the time, and that was checking a box. That was, hey, here's some free counseling, go there. And it was somebody that worked in like family counseling or some body imaging. And when I came in, I blew her mind, and I'm like, I can't go back. She was a PhD, and I made her cry, and I left. So is that your experience? Is that what you see until somebody pops up in your office?
You mean with their experiences as you described? Like, yes, I think not the first time I've heard that they tell a therapist something and they as you say, these gruesome things, and they cry. Because I even have written down here because I wrote down what I think the attributes of a trauma therapist should be for your population, and one of them was a strong witness. So you have to be a strong witness. Anyway, so yes. And again, this is what's so frustrating, because these guys, they finally, like you say, this crack, and they finally go, gosh, you know what? I'm not tapping out, but I'm going to tap out to a degree where I'm going to go seek help. And they do it. And it takes a lot for these men to go seek help. It does, because of the stigma and everything, this overlay that's on your community. There they go. They're sitting there finally doing the thing. It takes a lot of balls to do that. And then they're sitting in front of someone who is unskilled, and it doesn't matter what, it has the acronyms after your name doesn't matter. The letters after your name don't matter. This is about bedside manner. It's about natural talents. And then myself, this is what's baffling, well, not baffling, but it's interesting to me that I am not a first responder. I come transparent with the men when I do their assessments. And so far that's been okay. Like I know it's because I have my own trauma story. I have something called complex PTSD. It's from childhood traumas. And there's a way to frame that is universal. And I've been able to transfer that to you guys. And so there's something about, what else did I write here? Authenticity, transparency. And I think that these therapists are not ready for you guys. The other thing too, there's this language, the client's resistant. It's like, nah, I don't know about that. I don't think that. No, it's like, in my training, there's no resistant clients. There's just unskilled clinicians.
Well, I like that. Well, to your point too, Shelley, so we'll get into more of the attributes in a second, but in the beginning you talked about like our segment of the population is woefully underserved with, counselors like you. And in Florida, where I live or where a lot of our listeners are, there has been a big push for certified first responder counselors, and there is a big network, but it's still not enough. I mean, the fact that I met Doug at Survive First and I came to California to, reach out and talk about this says a lot, right? I came to California versus staying here in my home state. So you're spot on with that. And then secondly, for the listener too, so you deal a lot, you say men, and we're saying that because you deal mainly with men at After Action. The first responders that come through there are firefighters, paramedics, dispatchers, deputies, police officers. So, yes. But there's also you have a sister house. What's it called? Ohana. Okay. Yeah. So, and you keep the males and the females separate when they're going through counseling and therapy. So there's not another layer of things that can go awry, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, going back to what you were saying with the attributes. So with me, I think a lot of us get into this with a high ACE score. and I'm going to ask you to talk about ACEs right after this. But I came in with a high ACE score, and you were the first person that you had a key. You had this key that was invisible, and within seconds, you turned it. And I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. I've been heard. And that, for me, was that's why you're on the podcast. So,
that's interesting. A key, gosh.
Yeah. So talk about what ACEs are, and then further your discussion on the, what you think the attributes of a really good first responder counselor might be.
Sure. So ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences Survey. You can find it on the online. The ACEs. It was developed in, I think, 1990 by Kaiser, and it was a study because these MDs, these doctors, were seeing little kids that had high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, asthma, all kinds of stuff. And they said, gosh, they were from lower socioeconomic, places, and they created this 11-question assessment as a scale. And it was like, did you see your mother beaten in the home? Were you beaten in the home? Did you have enough to eat? Were you sexually molested? Was someone in prison? Was there a divorce? So it's like really high capstone traumas that in any age is going to be a drag. But when you're in those developmental stages, infancy to 18 years of age, it starts to cross wires, corrupt your system. I say circuits blown. You learn weird shit. It's, if you have like adult in the household that's loaded or drunk or on drugs, or you have adult in the household that's mentally ill or depressed, if there's suicide, it's just that. And they come to find out that if you have 4 or more, there's 11 questions. If you score 4 or more on this, the way I put this is you're going to have a rough interface with adulthood. You're not going to have what you need to sort of carry on with really fundamental birthrights, like engaging with others, understanding how to self-soothe without fucking killing yourself, with these quote bad habits. Dissociation is huge. It's no surprise that the men I work with have high ACE scores because we're, sort of on one from the beginning. I remember talking to you, John, and we determined that you were either dead or on one. That's a problem, anywho, so I start, and I'll tell you something, back to the males and females quickly. In my career, I prefer to work with men. I've worked with females, but I work with men primarily. So for the purposes of this interview, I'm going to be talking about men. Women, it's another carve out, and that's actually another podcast because they're so different than us, than men. But the Ohana, and the thing that's staggering about our Ohana place is that I believe it's the first facility for female first responders in the nation. That's pisses me off.
Yeah,
where are we? Anyway, so I start my sessions with the guys who come through after action with this ACE survey, man. And they're, these examples of these questions, they're rough. And the guys are sitting there and they answer, honestly, some men kind of tap around the sexual molestation piece sometimes, but then come back once I've established, it's called a therapeutic alliance, and there's a trust there. But for the most part, the guys, their asses in their hands and they really want change, and they're answering this shit. And so that, it kind of helps them right away. It blows the doors off a little bit when I explain this to them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, since I started down my own travel with PTSD and CPTSD and wellness, I started really looking at that around 2019 when a significant event happened in my life. And I started doing research. And the more I talk one-on-one with people, the more I realize that there are high ACE scores in my friend group of law enforcement, and that most of us, so I'm 54, and most of us came from a generation of parents that you just deal with it, and it stays in the 4 walls of the house, especially for those of us born in the South, it just stays in the house.
Yeah.
And then going back to law enforcement, one of the very first sergeants I ever worked for was a Vietnam veteran whose name tag said serving since 1963. So I wasn't even born in 1963. So at the time, I didn't even think I could go to him and go, "Hey, I'm kind of messed up from that crime scene," because he had no time for that. And
you walk it off.
Walk it off, kid. Put some
bootstrap it. Walk it off, Buttercup. All that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And so now we fast forward, and now we're starting to uncover some of these traits and trends, and that's just the magic of what you do. You're not the typical therapist that I've talked to. You do keep it real. You're transparent, and you're authentic, and so are all the people there with you. Like Rick and Ali and Bonnie and all those other folks. So it's just a treasure trove for our listeners that want to get help and want to stop the bullshit. And
right.
Stop covering up, the bullshit and get help. So anyway.
I'll tell you, I got sober, like I say, in 98. And like back then, no one was talking about family of origin, and it wasn't until I went back and got a master's that I found this great book called The Body Keeps the Score by Professor van der Kolk. And I felt like, well, God, this is a roadmap for my life. I mean, it really kind of knocked me out. And then I took the ACEs, and that blew my mind. I scored 7 on that thing, man. And it just explained a lot. It's like, well, fuck, if I had had this in the early work, I think I would have maybe gotten some more kind of further along at my age, even with my own development. I think that even the lay citizenry is like, I think if we have a rough childhood, we leapfrog over any work on that, because even in our culture today in 2025, it's like, what are you going to blame the parents? What are you doing? Well, you're fine. It's like, that was then. What are you talking about? Kids are resilient. They're whatever goes on. It's like, they don't remember. And for your community, it's like you guys pick the most dangerous job in our land, basically, the most adrenaline-inducing job. And it makes sense. And I think that does the heavy lifting for, quote, working on yourself. Because it's like, I'm married, I have kids, I have this great career. It's like, I'm held in great favor. I have accommodations and all this stuff. It's like, I'm squared away. And they're not. These guys are slowly dying. It's, I did the stories I hear, and it's not even about the call outs, but it's just about what happens to them.
Yeah.
It's devastating.
You run out of runway. Everything that you use to cope eventually stops working. And then going back to the body keeps the score. I mean, I'd be curious what you think like the top 5 ailments are. I know for me, it's GI tract. And that started when I was a kid because of some things that I experienced as a child. To this day, I struggle with GI issues. So what would you say off the top of your head, like the top 3, 4, or 5?
I would say it would be high blood pressure, obesity, maybe not so much with you guys because you try to stay fit, but it's like it would be, diabetes, high blood pressure. Yeah, those two are coming to mind. What keeps coming to my mind is more about behaviors. It's like the avoidant behaviors of PTSD, that's when it gets into addiction. It's like, in my training, it's maladaptive self-soothing, which always made me angry. It's like, it's not maladaptive. It's way adaptive. It's like, I needed that. And that's, we're acting out, if you will, with, overeating or undereating, over-exercising, not exercising enough, sex conduct, and absolutely drugs and alcohol.
So where does that avoidant behavior come from? So, and other people call it risky behavior, but it's avoidant behavior. So what's the stem? Why do we do it? Why do first responders get involved in that?
Because you're trying to avoid the signs and symptoms of PTS. So it's too much. The cup is overflowing. So I think with the self-soothing, and it doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It could be going in and gaming or being on your screens or sitting in your driveway or parking down the block for a good 20, 30 minutes before you go home and just check it, whatever it is, whatever's going on. It's to either turn your brain off or turn it on. But it's to try to get some kind of balance. We're trying to find homeostasis. Little kids, it's like, and we'll start this behavior as little kids. It's like, we'll, sugar or masturbation or, you're stealing stuff or you're there's those archetypes of children like the lost child, the hero child, the scapegoat, all of those are even starting with our behaviors in childhood to avoid. And so it's very well honed by the time we get into adulthood. So it's to avoid the pain, the cacophony, pots and pans in the head, feeling like we should be doing better, especially first responders and cops and the like, detectives and all this other stuff, like capstone apex animal guys. And they're looking at me with eyes like dinner plates going, I don't know what's happening to me, because they're this is what's coming up for me too lately, is like, because I'm like, God, these guys, and they keep taking overtime and they just never stop, 18-hour shifts, and then I'll take another and this and that. And it makes sense because the work itself is avoidant behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I know that I was one of those guys. Overtime, I'm in. Let's go do it. When I was in a robbery task force, the more call outs, the better. And it number one, it fed like this adrenaline part of me. It gave me self-worth in this dual realm that I lived in, because there's the home self and then there's the work self. And the work self excelled. Throw me in a crisis, I'm in. Giddy up, I know what to do. Leave me at home with babies and a full diaper genie and, not enough money to pay rent, and I don't know what to do. So, work could be a very big avoidant behavior.
I feel my sense of it is like, in my brain, it's like a leaf blower to the head for you guys. It's like you're out there and it's like you're laser focused and all you're doing is you're on task, and that, everything recedes to the back. And I could see where that would be quite intoxicating.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming forward with, again, a high ACE score, where you've got unresolved childhood stuff. And I want to qualify this because I say this to the guys when I start working with them. It's like, we're not going to sit in a corner and wow and walk back, with a teddy bear. That's not what this is. But we are going to give it its due deference, and we're going to have a look, because there's some source codes there that have to do with your here and now. And it's just facts. And so it's like, I just want to qualify that a little bit, because when you talk about even today, again, in 2025, unbelievable that it's like I have to still qualify it. It's like, let's look at your childhood. It's like we're not, it's like somehow we're robots in childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the other things we talked about offline was going back to finding the right counselor and more of those attributes that you're talking about. So for the people that you see, they come in and they're usually at a breaking point or rock bottom, and they come in and they're looking for help. What is it about you and your peers at After Action that makes it easier for somebody to open up to you?
I think the first thing that has to occur is the person has to be very inspired and very interested and curious about who they're sitting across from. It's not a job. It's not like we're a bus driver. What makes I think there's a generosity there with us. What makes me different is, I'm not a unicorn. There's other people like me, but I feel like a unicorn a little bit when I hear these stories. But guys coming back, but I'm very plain spoken, I'm sure is evidence now. I don't use hedging language. I don't, and I think it's because I cut my teeth in treatment, because I only have people. Back in the day, it was 45 days, but now it's 30 days or something. So you got to get a lot in. I was trained to not retain clients. It's like, I'm not someone who is like, let you talk for 50 minutes and then say, okay, I guess I'll see you next week. I said synthesized solutions. It's like, let's get to so let's find the source material. Where does it hurt? Where's the original wounding? Got it. Have a sense of that. And then I help you see patterning throughout your life and how it keeps going back to this source code, if that's the case. I'm also a bit transparent, and this is because I again started my career as a drug counselor. And in drug counseling, you tell your own story as a sober person. That's what you do. And so I'm transparent with, like my ACE score. When I do it with the guys, if it's appropriate, I tell them mine and say, so I kind of come with receipts, not details or content, but just like this overlay of like, I know what I'm talking about because of X, Y, and Z. Moreover, in my adult life, my self-soothing was very self-destructive and demeaning to me. My alcoholism and my sex conduct and the rest. So it's like I'm very generous with those, not details, but just a snapshot of how this can play out in an adult's life. And it always lands well with people. So I've been that way my whole career. And I think I think the way we're trained is, there's even language with Freud. It's like tabula rasa, the blank slate, and, it's like truly for a human person to change and feel that depth charge inside of them and go, gosh, that makes sense. Boom. I understand that, the person is supposed to come to it on their own. That's accurate. but we don't have time. I've only got you for, about 30 days. I see you twice a week. That's 8 sessions. So let's just get to it.
Yeah. Pull the Band-Aid off. And that's what I think a lot of the first responders appreciate, is that there's no time to waste. And there's a purpose, there's a sense of urgency, and let's get after it. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you this on a personal level. What's it like? So let's say the After Action House, let's say that there's 10 clients in the house, and a lot of them, they rotate in and out. And when you walk in the door, you know immediately, especially if it's cops, everybody's sizing you up. What's it like for you to walk through the room knowing that everybody's like, what does she do? How is she? What is she going to tell me about? And all these kinds of things. Is she real? I mean, how quickly did you adapt to that? Or are you still adapting to it?
I think I'm still adapting to it. I got to tell you, my first client, I was intimidated because I have such respect for you guys. And I in my career, I'd worked with a lot of military, but not first responders necessarily. So I was very intimidated, and I was thinking, oh gosh, I'm going to hear, not even the stories, but just like, I just want to be strong and available and stuff like this. And my first guy was LAPD, and he said, I have PTSD from the LAPD. And I laughed, and he laughed too. He says, you think I'm kidding? And it was my first experience with departmental betrayal. Oh. And it blew my mind. And then the childhood stuff. So I'm like, well, shit, I'm in my wheelhouse. It's like, and then, so how to be summed up? It's like, I guess it doesn't impact me because it's my job to make you feel comfortable. That's my job. You're here because your ass fell off. You've hit, someone's bottom or your own. Sometimes the families encourage, or the department, they're not really ready. The ambivalent client is kind of one of my favorite clients because they're really side-eyeing. That's okay. That's all right. You side-eye all day. It's my job to build that trust. And I'm always the same. That's the other thing. I'm consistent. I'm the same. And like, I get guys that don't want to be alcoholics. They have yellow eyes with jaundice. They don't want to be alcoholic. You don't have to be, all right, we don't have to be an alcoholic. Let's find other languaging, but let's get to, something's going on.
Yeah.
You're near killing yourself and freaking people out. So being summed up, I don't know. I guess because I'm such an advocate for guys, I never feel like I'm getting sized up somehow. I don't feel that way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you did, when I met you, I'm like, okay, there's an air of confidence. Like, let's see what's going to happen here. So,
yep.
You brought up departmental PTSD or betrayal. So, in my little narrow corner of the world, there's the stuff that happens in our childhood. There's the stuff that happens in our career, the loss of a friend, the line of duty death, suicide of a friend, all the trauma, the calls for service that you go to that are so bizarre that people do things to themselves or other people that you can't even imagine, and then from there, we talk a lot about the thin blue line, and that has many interpretations, and some say that the thin blue line is the line between order and chaos, and some people misconstrue it as the line like the blue wall of silence where we take care of each other, which is BS. And some of it is the brother and sisterhood of first responders. But what I found is the most vicious group of people are cops and how they treat other cops. I don't know how that is for firefighters or EMS, but if somebody on your squad or somebody is down, there's always a group of people that want to finish kicking them, and that betrayal from your agency is probably more detrimental than anything, because you went there to overcome some of your childhood issues, and you found this deeper validation at work, and you feel accepted. Nobody knows about your childhood, and now you're betrayed at work.
I wonder if part of that is these guys don't want to get it on them. Meaning that it's like if one of us have quote fallen or are vulnerable or kind of can't get it back in the can, losing the thread, whatever's going on, it's underdeveloped, immature leadership. And often, and I'll stay in my lane here, but often I hear from the guys that the leadership hasn't really been in the field, so it's classic middle management bullshit. I think that, again, because when there's, you're mustering in or recruiting or whatever like that, I don't think that there's enough front end understanding of how what you guys witness lives in you. Again, back to like what I thought was going to be happening, what I thought the sessions were going to be filled with, which is like, stuff that happened in the field, what you've witnessed, everything. And it's so not that. I would say it's like 20% that. Like, it's really not. It's the departmental stuff. It's I want to be able to I want to engage with my family. How do I blend these two lives? And then unmet childhood stuff,
Yeah. And that's what I see too. That's what I see within my own life. And a lot of people think that it's just what you see at work. What you see at work just compounds everything.
Compounds everything, indeed. And moreover, you guys are trained for it. You're built for service. You're so like I have this one man right now, he's been on the force for 2 or 3 years, and they said, yeah, you're going to see X, Y, and Z. And then I think there was an officer involved shooting on his first call out or something. And he's like, oh, and then, the children, like right away, he's got a very interesting career so far of like, stuff going on. Like, I've dealt with guys that 25 years that haven't had what this guy's had already. So for whatever reason. And he just right away was like, okay, well, that's it. Like, on to the next. But it's like, you're going to see this brutality and these gruesome scenes. And then I think it just stacks on top. I don't know. There's something about being of service. I'm here, seen, on to the next. And you guys are trained for that, and you're also set up for that somehow in your nervous system. Cops and EMT, you guys are a special breed, first responders. So there's something natural to you doing that. But I think that every man has a limit.
Yeah, there's definitely a threshold, and then you're full. And sometimes there's no coming back from that, right?
Could be. Well,
Yeah.
The guys where, something's going on where they're seeing the faces of their children at a scene or something like that, where they're, it's starting to get misty and diffused, and they don't have this acuity and kind of this separation that they used to have.
Yeah. And we'll be right back. Every day you put your life on the line to protect and serve. Who's protecting you? United Badges Insurance Services operates as a dedicated resource for the first responder public safety community. Serving thousands of first responders, United Badges offers a wide range of products including commercial insurance, group accident and health insurance, and personal insurance such as auto, home, renters, rental properties, vacation properties, boat, motorcycle, RVs, flood, and umbrella. United Badges serves active and retired public safety personnel, public safety agencies, public safety associations, public safety support businesses, and public safety families and friends. Experience the United Badges difference. Call 800-566-5990 or visit unitedbadges.com to request your free insurance quote today. United Badges Insurance Services is a proud strategic partner of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. Applicants are individually underwritten by each respective insurance carrier and subject to insurance policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states. Promotional material for descriptive purposes only. Now back to the show. I read a study years ago. I don't know if it's accurate, so I'd like your input, but it was a study that talked about like stress in the different areas of first responders. It was firefighters, corrections officers, law enforcement, and paramedics, EMTs. And the study talked about who had the most stress. And it was EMTs, corrections, law enforcement, and firefighters had the least. Do you see that? I mean, and there's a reasoning behind it. From what I was explained to me, the firefighters work as a unit. They eat together. They rest together. They go on calls together. There's immediate bonding when they get back to the station. Mm-hmm. Police officers are solo. Paramedics, they're stuck in a bus all night, and either one's driving or one's in the back dealing with the trauma. And the corrections officers are doing time with inmates. Mm-hmm. So do you see that in your world? Is that true to some degree?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say in my experience, the firefighters and the EMTs are, and this is a general comment, are oddly a bit more within themselves, and cops are more chatty. Cops will be chatty about it. I'm not, but as far as about the PTSD itself, I heard it put where they were talking about, because, in our culture, we think of military guys as having PTSD forever. It's like, oh, the military. And this guy says, well, military trains for 90 and is in the field for 10. And even this list that you said, you guys train for 10% and you're in the field for 90. And then I think you're the one, I think I said this to you, John, and you're the one that kind of said, nah, the EM, because I thought cops were at the top. But your list makes sense to me that in order, the EMTs, the COs, the cops, and the fire. And I think your point absolutely is the bonding of the guys afterwards. Being together afterwards, because you guys are solo. These stories you hear of these cops that come upon something waiting for backup, all of that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And in that study, again, I have to find the source, but they didn't talk about dispatchers. And I think if they brought dispatchers into that, they would probably be at the top. So for our listeners, if you've ever been into a dispatch center, whether it's two people dispatching or a center where there's 100 people and they're at a major center, they're in a dark room. Usually there's no windows. The phone keeps ringing. There's constantly a radio chatter. They can't walk away. I could leave a homicide scene and go to 7-Eleven and get an energy drink and a can of dip, process real quick, and then go write a report. And I had a break for a minute, and I can compartmentalize and go, okay, I got to get back to work. Mm-hmm. They can't. Often they can't. And so there's been this huge, at least in Florida, a huge push for wellness with telecommunicators. But I mean, that's an aside. They were not included in that study. So
I appreciate that. Amy, myself, and Bonnie went to 911 dispatch here in Los Angeles. And that's another thing where it just blew my mind. It was not windowless. It was actually really just windows everywhere. And they had like twinkle lights. They had a sensory room. But it was just nonstop. And I would sit with the people, and everyone I sat with 3 people. They had all had some kind of tragedy in their life that brought them to that work.
Yeah. And here's the thing with them. So they could be answering the phone and somebody as simple as, hey, I need directions, or who do I call? There's a pothole in my yard. And the next call could be, hey, my mommy's not breathing and they're trying to walk a child through doing CPR. And then the next call again is somebody who's just so rude to them because, being backed up in traffic. So they really have the roulette wheel of emotion that comes through there. So, and last week was Telecommunicators Appreciation Week. So here's a mistake I made, candidly, is often during that week I'll go deliver food to dispatch centers, and often it's not healthy food. It's, Chick-fil-A or donuts or cakes and things like that, because to me it's comfort food.
Yeah.
But the mistake I make is I shouldn't do that. I should bring healthy food, because if I were there, I would probably eat till I couldn't, move, because I'd be so stressed out. But anyway, the other thing I was going to ask you about too was, what would be some tips or some signs that somebody should take a little tactical pause in their career, or, and go, hey, I need to kind of reevaluate my mental health. Am I doing okay? What would you say to that? It's kind of a big question.
No, it's good though. The first thing that always comes up is compare yourself to past versions of yourself. So when was the last time I felt like myself? Okay. When was the last time I, sort of felt squared away or good about myself? The signs would be, it would be if you have a family and you're withdrawing from them, and so you're coming home and you're just checking out, or it's dissociation. Like in dissociation, people think, oh, I float above my body and I see myself on it. No, dissociation is it's just mindlessness, and it's there to protect our brain, but then we end up kind of being in that realm way more than we should, because that's where absent-mindedness comes, where we're stepping out on the wife, or eating our balls off, or drinking, or something like that, or just absolutely checking out. So it's that, because on paper it's like, oh, he's angry, or oh, he's got a short temper, or oh, he's gaining some weight or he's losing some weight or whatever goes on. And it's like, it can be way more subtle than that. It's like just sitting there not feeling like you're doing enough. You can't like satisfy everyone. Your absolute sleeplessness is huge. It's like, and then the shit we take to get to sleep that then kind of leaves us at a deficit in the morning. So you wake up at a deficit. I talk about this with the guys. I have my hand in front of my face, like as if it's a water line. And I say, it's over your nose is just under, you're just over the water line when you wake up. And that's, if you're feeling like that, if you're feeling like you're drowning, if you're trying to talk yourself out of it, it's like, no, I'm all right. You're trying to make these adjustments, but it's gotten way, way ahead of you. The language I've been using lately, it's like I'm dead 30 yards back and I'm still walking. People especially with high ACE scores are very high functioning. I was a very high functioning alcoholic, so no one even knew I'd had the issue, but because I was able to mask and be, handle a crew of 35 and a fancy, do my thing and then go home and, absolutely fall apart in the way I was falling apart. So it's that, it's like, it's that moment where it's like, is my front life and my private life, squaring? Or, where is it too heavy, if that makes any sense?
That makes sense. Yeah. So what we used to call it was getting in your nothing box. Like you come home from work and you don't mean to be abrupt or gruff, but you're bedraggled, right? You're tired. You're physically tired. You've been wearing polyester. Back in the day, you were in polyester and a vest all day. You stink. Your feet hurt. Your brain hurts. You just want to sit down, but the trash is overflowing. You forgot to take the movies back. That's how I'm dating myself. So, all these things hit you. But for a minute, you just need to get in your nothing box just to process and defrag, right? And then the longer, I found that I stayed in the nothing box longer and longer and longer because there were no distractions in there. It was me. I could just watch something mindless on television. And then to the people around me, it was like, he's disinterested. He's no longer interested in our family, which was not the case. I was trying to battle so I could get out of the nothing box and check in. I just didn't manage it very well.
Lately, I've gotten a lot of young dads of young families here, and like 3 guys in a row almost are saying they get home after dealing with horror, and they hand me the baby. I walk in, they hand me the baby, and it just breaks my heart because the dad, there's a big part of him that wants the baby. I mean, and loves the baby and loves her and the rest of it. But he is so blown out that he, this nothing box, that's great language. And then that's a whole nother podcast about the wives, and what they endure and what they kind of get used to and stuff like that. But they're, because what are we talking about? You guys, you get off shift. If you say there's no alcohol or any kind of addiction like that, and then you come on home and like you say, you're just dripping from the day, and where is that in the training? It's like how to divest yourself of the day before you go, how to get your mind right, if you will. I mean, I don't know if you guys are even trained with that.
No, we were taught to get our minds right to go to work. And the first thing was when you started putting on the uniform, it was symbolic that your thought process started to change. But coming home, there was really, that I know of, there was no formal training. It was, what I found myself doing was going the back way home, taking a different route. And in my mind trying to go, I could have done this better. I could have handled that call better. And by the time I get to the driveway, I was trying to leave it in the patrol car, which is not necessarily possible, especially in the middle of the night, because some of that stuff comes back and you reprocess it. So you're right. I don't know that we do a good job of preparing yourself to go home at the end of a shift.
So Bonnie talks about it, our sensory person at After Action, very skilled person on the cutting edge of this piece, the nervous system piece. And she talks about going way, way above baseline, normal, where most people are at. You guys go way, way above it with your job. And then, what we're doing a disservice, and we have to figure this out because you guys come back from that every day and have to shift down into a heart center. So from a head to a heart center with the family, which is quiet and mundane. I've had guys say, wife hands me the baby and I'm like going, this is very graphic, but he goes, I'm sorry, I was just scooping brains off the ground. But yeah, okay, the baby. So, and in the same breath, the men don't necessarily want to express to wife that that's happened because they don't want to burden her with it. They don't want to revisit it. So it's such a split mind that has to happen. And then, with, again, the trash and the diaper genie and the baby, I don't know, it's there. And that's hearth and home. That's the woman you picked, the kids you want. And it just pisses me off that it shouldn't be that way. I think that we wring our men out in our culture and toss them to the side. And at 22 a day, I mean, I don't know if that's still the number of suicides. Something's got to give here.
Yeah, it's 22 a day. And by the way, here's another podcast we need to come back and revisit. 2 episodes ago, I had a friend of mine named Matt Walsh. He's a deputy commissioner here with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They started doing a study on law enforcement suicides in Florida for not just active duty police officers or deputies, but those that were retired, those that started the academy and dropped out. And as soon as that study's published, I'll get it to you. It's a bigger epidemic than we know about. So here's another question for you as we start to wind down. You talk a lot about the shadow work. What does that mean?
So that's some languaging here in mental health circles, and certainly spiritual circles. It's like, what's this shadow? I'm doing this shadow work. And I get upset with the languaging because it sounds like I always say the same thing. It's like lavender oil on my pillow and I ring a little bell and I sit there and, and all this. And it's not that. The shadow work, in my opinion, is getting into the rot of the thing. It's the rot. This is my language for me. This is what helps me. I don't have a choice but to turn around and see the stark reality of, what created this trauma response in me. And it's a fucking horrible story for many years. And that's just the reality of it. So I think that the shadow work can be also called spiritual bypassing, because where it's like, oh, I'm in positivity. I think positive, forgive everyone, stay in gratitude. That's great. But it's a little early because again, we don't want to leapfrog over the pain of the thing. This is where people get it wrong. And it doesn't have to take a long time, man. I mean, but it's the shadow work to my mind is sitting with someone you trust with some, kind of thought forms, prompts, ways of thinking, ways of reframing, and just really looking at the impact that this stuff that you've been through, how it's impacted you, be very real with it. My sense of my own work is that I think that there's stuff that failed in me, 0 to 7 and on. I mean, and so I had to have workarounds and adaptations and stuff like that. And so it's about being very, very real about who you are, who you're not. And how you've been trying to get along and how your coping skills are now biting back. It's that's the shadow work, in my opinion. It's not gratitude, positivity, or, letting go, letting God and things of this nature. A God of mine, anyway, it really makes me nuts.
You use that phrase a lot, the shadow work and then the dark night of the soul. So with the shadow work, to me is, again, this is disclosure, is I do a lot of painting now. I thought it was ridiculous, but I paint at least one picture a week. And sometimes it's completely abstract. Sometimes it's just something I dreamed about and it comes out. That is shadow work, because I'm not going to share that with somebody, because it looks like I, have shaky hands or just had like 6 energy drinks. I'm trying to hold a brush, but that is a release, and that is just something between me and a palette or me and a canvas, and it's processing, and it's just personal. It's the shadow work too, that I'm unpacking things that I've never shared with anybody or done anything. Mm-hmm. And then the other imagery that I get is, these days if you go to a gym, there's almost always a man or a woman that's wearing a sweatshirt, right? There's a whole group of people that are wearing next to nothing. They want you to see how big they are, how shredded they are, their veins popping out. But there's a guy in the back or a girl in the back with a big sweat-stained sweatshirt with a ball cap pulled way down low, and they're playing heavy metal really loud in their earbuds, and they're hammering it out. And they're doing the shadow work. They're doing the shadow work to their body, but in my mind, I see that's what we do here in therapy. That's, I've got my sweatshirt on. The whole world doesn't need to know that I'm chiseling away things from the past, or I'm reevaluating things, or I'm surgically cutting out the rot. At some point, I'll emerge and take off my sweatshirt, and I'm not going to be at the finish line, but I'll have been further down the road a little bit. That's sometimes how I see the shadow work.
Yeah. No, that's great. And, back to cutting out the rot, and then what's left is a scar. And even the scar can tug on the skin a little bit. The thing is none of this shit's forgotten. We don't forget anything. That's not what therapy's for. It's just about recalibrating it so it seats in your soul in a way that doesn't eat you alive. And the thing about therapy, any kind of a, wellness community, be it 12 steps or whatever goes on, it's like in our therapy, we go there to dump our head and our heart with someone who is skilled and trained, responsible, boundaried, so we can go home and live. The whole point of this is so we can live and have a buoyant, thriving life. Despite it, we walk with it. We don't, the part of the reason we're all suffering as adults is because we left ourselves way, way back many decades ago. And this is not how it works.
Yeah, it comes back to roost.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. So, Shelley, as we're winding down, somebody wanted to know more about you or After Action. Where could they go to find that out? Is it just on the website at that After Action? Was it afteractioncare.com or something like that?
I believe so. Gosh, I should know this. I have, maybe you'll put my little card up that I was thinking that anyway, it's afteractioncare.com. I do not know this.
Oh, here it is. It's afteraction.care.
Yeah.
And so any of our listeners can go there and they can find out more about you, the program for men and women. So they can go there and they can learn what you do and maybe save a career, save a life that way.
Absolutely.
So, any departing thoughts for me or our listeners?
I think that we live in very upset times. It's, this, and this is another podcast probably, but the whole defund the police thing and everything that's gone on, I feel like there's a lot, guys aren't recruiting. Guys aren't going into the force. It's like, what are we going to do? So I just want to say I have so much respect and deference for this community. And I just feel very honored to be able to be in such a saturated environment with you guys. I have learned so much about trauma working with first responders. Well,
I'll tell you this, Chance put us together, and I'm so glad that I met you, and I'm so glad, like I said, you held this imaginary key that nobody else held for me personally, and I know that most of the people that were in my session feel the same way. You opened that up, and it's been painful. It's been a painful road, but you gave me a voice, and I felt validated. And I would imagine almost every first responder that sits across from you feels the same way. So I would
say this.
Go ahead.
It's you guys are very brave by the time you get to me, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because I'm just going, here's a door, here's a threshold, but you've got to open it, you got to walk through. I just show it to you, and you guys are the brave ones. You have the courage. Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for your passion, for your compassion, and thanks for joining me, Shelley. Thank you for listening to The Tactical Pause, the official podcast of the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association. FDSA proudly serves over 25,000 deputy sheriffs across the state with legal benefits, vital training, and financial assistance in times of need. You can listen to previous episodes at fldeputysheriffs.org or wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a review and encourage your friends, coworkers, and those in the law enforcement community to listen as well. To learn more about the Florida Deputy Sheriff's Association and how we serve those who serve, visit our website at fldeputysheriffs.org.